All right, so the next guy I'm going to introduce, Adam Reich is allowing me to introduce him because he's a 24-year-old best friend. I talked to him earlier. He is the guy that I started bodybuilding with back in early 2000, and I met him in 2000, did my first show in 2003. But if it wasn't for PJ Braun, I probably wouldn't be as great as a bodybuilder as I was. I probably wouldn't have been a pro because PJ was like the Jay Cutler of Connecticut back when I was coming up. He was the guy that everybody talked about being the next Mr. Olympia. We trained together every day. I have some of the best and worst stories with and about PJ Braun, and he was a Mr. Olympia in a lot of ways in the bodybuilding world. He started Blackstone Labs. He started many other businesses, which I'm gonna let you guys get into. He just got out of federal prison back in October for something that a lot of us think it was absolutely ridiculous, that he should never even had to deal with. But somebody that's an inspiration to myself and many of you guys around the world, one of my best friends, 24-year friendship, PJ Braun. Don't cry.
Good thing I was planning on talking about prison anyway, so if I wasn't, cat's out of the bag. So thank you, Guy, that was great. Thank you, Adam, for letting me be here. If it looks odd that I'm standing with my arm behind my back like this, it's because the last time I had a microphone, I was standing in federal prison in a program where we had to speak on microphones and actually stand with our hand behind our back like this. So the freedom to move it around is kind of nice. For those of you who don't know much about me, I grew up very overweight in Connecticut, and my stepfather got me into playing football in 5th grade, and I was 50 pounds too heavy to play with the kids my age. So I started exercising, and I wanted to learn how to work out with weights. My biological father was a bodybuilder, and he had left us, but one of the things that he left behind was some sand weights and the Arnold Schwarzenegger Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. So I taught myself how to work out, and fast forward to 22 years old, I did my first show, 189 pounds, drug-free, wanted to see how good I could be, and I actually placed in the top 5, 5th. But at that point, I was hooked. I did my first cycle. I was gonna be a pro bodybuilder. That was my dream. I picked up a coach, Dave Palumbo, and he started a company, Species Nutrition, and he was gracious enough to allow me to be the face of the company with him. I got to fly all around the country. I got to do stuff in Australia and Costa Rica, all as an amateur bodybuilder without even obtaining pro status. And it wasn't until 2012, I was training for USA's, I was coaching, and I had a nice little life for myself. I was focused on my goals of becoming a pro, and I just had a random crazy leg workout one day, and I ended up in the hospital the next morning. And so it turned out that in that leg workout, I had done such a crazy squat routine that I had ruptured blood vessels inside my liver. The doctor said you have a ruptured hemangioma. It's internal bleeding, and you're gonna be in a lot of pain for a while. So I was 18 days out from USA's, and I said, well, will I die? He said, no, but you gotta stop doing what you're doing. I said, well, I have this event coming up in 18 days. I've been training a whole year for this. I've been in all the magazines. People are saying this is my year. I can't just not do it now. And he said, well, you're gonna be in terrible pain. I said, I'm used to dealing with pain. I'd like to just know that I could finish this. So at that point, I knew I wasn't gonna be the best that I could be. It wasn't gonna be my year. I came off all of the gear that I was taking. Do I think that the steroids that I was taking made that happen to me? No, but do I think that they contributed to it? Probably. And I kind of knew that was gonna be it for me after that because I had put everything into that. So when I got to USA's, I made the weight. I did all the last 3 weeks off of everything. I couldn't even train anymore at that point. I posed, and I got off stage, and I was really happy because I knew that I had done everything I could possibly do at that point, and I was content. I knew at that point that I wanted to start my own business. I started a company called Blackstone Labs. I started it 6 weeks after USA's. I had this vision in my mind the whole time. And I started it in a spare bedroom of a townhouse that I moved into that I paid the first, last, and security on money that I had made from coaching clients. I had no furniture, I had nothing. I got a laptop, I had a little foldable table that I set up, and a chair, and I started this company, and in 6 months, I made $200,000 on one product. I said, okay, I can actually do something with this. The next year, I made 1.2 million, still doing it myself. Calling stores, hey, this is PJ Braun, president of Blackstone Labs, click. Hey, this is PJ Braun, president of Blackstone Labs. What's Blackstone Labs? Well, click. It wasn't until a guy named Steve Calabrese at Natural Body in New York answered the phone, and he said, PJ Braun, you did an event up here one day. You were a really nice guy. You stayed and you shook everybody's hands, you talked to everybody. He's like, you know what? I'll order right now. I said, sure, let's work out a deal. That day, I'll never forget it, he spent $30,000 on the phone with me that day. I was dancing around my house, running around with this check. Like I was rich, I couldn't believe it. And that motivated me to just keep calling more stores and more stores and more stores. Next year we did 9.8 million. The year after that we did 25 million. We became the Inc. 500, 27th fastest growing company in the United States. And I was living the life. Bought a beautiful 6,000 square foot house, Ferraris, Bentleys, Lamborghinis, and I'm listing them all because I was so crazy back then, I really was buying them all. And I thought, no one's gonna stop me. And then the FDA showed up at my warehouse. I got a call, hey, they just came in here with guns, they're taking the computers. I said, what? I wasn't even at work yet. I said, hold on, let me call my partner. My partner's been through this. Called him up. Hey, Jared, they say that the FDA is at the warehouse. They're cleaning stuff out. Should I go in there and talk to them? He said, not unless you want to go to jail today. I'd sit and wait home. They know where you are. So I sat for the rest of the day looking out my window, like wondering, like, am I getting arrested? I don't even know why. It turns out that the first product I ever sold, the one that I sold out of that spare bedroom, was a product that the FDA felt was similar to banned steroids. So we fought it. A group of us fought it. We said this product is not banned, and it was not banned when we were selling it. And the wildest thing about it is, when they raided my facility and they took everything, we weren't even selling that product anymore. We moved in a completely different direction. So their position was, these guys knew what they were doing. They pulled a fast one on the government, they pulled a fast one on the consumer, and they knew that they could get away with it because they were a step ahead of the FDA. Now think about how crazy that sounds. That we're like these geniuses that are staying ahead of the government agencies by putting out products similar to things that are banned. So our attorneys said, well, you can't put these guys in jail for that. You can't charge them for that. So we fought it. Fought it for 6 years. In that process, 2018, January 18th, I woke up in the hospital. I was there for 6 days. They said my blood alcohol level when I got there was 0.429, but I was lucky to be alive. I woke up seeing my parents crying. And that was, for me, a big wake-up call. Like, I gotta make some changes in my life. I haven't had alcohol since that day, by the way. And I started just getting back more to my roots, getting back into my fitness and my focus. I stopped worrying so much about the fancy stuff. I met an amazing woman who's my fiance, Marissa, who's here now, and I told her straight up, I said, I'm fighting the government. I might end up having to go to jail, but I believe I'm gonna win because I know that I wasn't breaking the law. And so it's gonna be a wild ride. So fast forward again to the day of my sentencing. At this point, we had spent $4 million fighting, turned friends against each other. Other guys worked out deals. I was the last man standing. The government said, Judge, this man was a ringleader of an operation that took advantage of the American people. They put dangerous products out there that could have gotten people sick, although no one did. This man deserves to go to jail for 77 months. The judge, fortunately, went under the guidelines and said, although I think this whole situation is confusing, I do feel that you did break a law. I'm going to sentence you to 54 months in federal prison. So that day, they pulled me right out of there. A lot of people say, oh, well, you're a white-collar guy. You got to go to, like, rich people prisons. No, no, no. That's not what I went through. They took me out of the courtroom, and they cuffed me, and they brought me to county jail, Broward County Jail. What a dump that place was. And in county jail, when I got there, they looked at they call it your jacket, right? That's your file. They looked at my jacket, and they said, you're on lorazepam and testosterone and all these things. You can't be on this stuff. Now, I was under the impression from my attorneys that they were going to let me take this stuff. And I've been on this medication for years. They said, you got to go into detox. And they threw me in what they call a turtle suit, which is this green Velcroed thing. They threw me into this cell. I spent 8 days there. So if you want to know what it was like detoxing in county jail from lorazepam, kratom, whatever else I was putting in my body back then, it actually wasn't that bad. But I spent 8 days like that. Then they moved me to another county jail where I was in a 6-man cell, which was interesting, for a week. Then I got shackled, put on a bus, brought to the FDC Miami. The FDC Miami was wild because county jail, you got phones that you can talk on for 30 minutes at a time. So, Marissa and I were still in touch with each other. When I got to the federal detention center, you get one 7-minute call. And when they told me that, I was just like, how is Marissa going to take this? Is she going to stay with me through all this? She said, I'll never leave your side, and I believe her, but this is a lot for anybody to go through. And I left her with the animals and all this mess on the outside. So I called her, I said, listen, things are going to be a lot different. We get one 7-minute call a day. I stayed in quarantine for 38 days like that, where they would let us out for 1 hour just to shower and use the phone, and then you're back in the cell, eating through a slot in the door, thinking about everything that you left behind. I made it through that. I got out into general population. I met a guy named Francisco, and Francisco was a devout Christian. And this isn't going to be one of those like cliche jail stories where I became like really like locked into God, but thank God for him because he did restore my faith, and he was like a guardian angel to me in there. And he was so powerful the way he spoke and the way he carried himself that it really, it just affected me in a different way than I would have imagined, and I started praying with him. And when I left, it was funny because he got really into bodybuilding, and I got back into my faith, and he said, God brought me to you, and he brought you to me. And that guy is actually still really into bodybuilding to this day. So when I got out of there, I thought I'm finally going to the camp where they say these white-collar guys go. They put me on a bus, and they brought me to the penitentiary in Atlanta. Now, the pen in Atlanta is the oldest prison in the United States. And there, we were locked down 24 hours a day. They let us out 3 times a week, on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, just to shower and get a call, and then you're back in the cell. In that place, man, there was cockroaches everywhere, rats, drugs. Somehow they managed to get drugs in there, and it's just a scary place. When I got out of there, I finally got to the camp. In the camp, I was able to walk around and actually just be outside. And I felt such a release when I got there. I said, now I'm going to be able to start my sentence. I'm going to be able to work out every day. Boom, boom, boom. I meet the counselor. I say, where is the recreation area? Oh, it's out in the back, whatever. I'm like, what do you guys got for weights in the gym here? And they said, oh, there's no weights in federal prison. I said, what? I thought that's what guys do in prison. They go, they work out. I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to get in great shape, like back in my bodybuilding days. They're like, no, there's no weights here. They don't want you guys getting big here. So that was when I knew I had to come up with a good plan. And I always felt that I was somebody that would sit down and put together a good plan. Now was the time where I really had to do it. So I figured out that if I went outside at 5 a.m. every morning when they opened the yard, before they did the shift change at 7, before programming started, before jobs started, I could get out there in the dark with a couple of pillowcases and I could fill them up with sand and rocks, and I could basically create kettlebells and do any kind of workout with that. And so that's what I did. I started doing it every morning, 5 o'clock. I'd be out on the yard doing my thing. Next thing you know, guys started tagging along, copying what I was doing. It was funny how things were in prison, because prison is really like racially separated. And it just so happened that the only guys that really wanted to work out in the morning were black guys. And they would straight up hover around me but not say anything. So finally one day I started talking to them, and they were like, man, you're a lot nicer than we thought you were gonna be. Man, you see a big white boy like that, you know, kind of keep your distance. So I started like hanging out with those guys doing my thing. And then the redneck guys started saying things like, well, Braun's on that black time over there. But I wouldn't change myself. I wouldn't change anything about myself. I was a bodybuilder, so if you wanted to bodybuild, you could bodybuild with me. And it got real popular. Next thing you know, Muscular Development asked me if I could continue to write my article that I was writing on the outside. I said, I could still do that in here, sure. So I would email what was going on in prison to my assistant. She would send it to Muscular Development, and they would print the story every month. Send it to me there. Next thing you know, everybody on the compound is reading the Muscular Development like, wait a minute, that guy goes to prison here. He doesn't look like the guy in the pictures, that's for sure. That was a big thing I got a lot. You don't look like the guy in the pictures. I'm like, well, that was a long time ago. But the reason I'm telling this part of this sad story is because bodybuilding was what started my whole future, right? And it led me to prison. But along the way, I got out of it because I was chasing money and I was chasing accomplishments, and I missed out on a lot. So once I got to prison and I had everything taken away from me, all I really had left was what I knew inside from bodybuilding and how to make it work in there, and I fell in love with it again. And I worked out hard every day with my sand and my rocks and the little workouts that I came up with. I didn't miss a single workout the entire time that I was there. The guards would say, Braun, are you trying to go outside today? It's 15 degrees out with the wind chill. And I'd say, is the yard open? They'd say, yeah, I mean, if you want. I said, man, I got to get my workout in. And they would say, you're really dedicated. And I would tell them, it's not really dedication, it's just this is what I love. And if I can't do what I love, this whole sentence is going to be a rougher time for me. So, although I got sentenced to 54 months, and I thought I was going to be gone for a long time, I was able to manage my time effectively and get into this program called the RDAP program. And the RDAP program was a residential drug and alcohol program. It was a modified therapeutic community. You have to live in a dorm with 100 other inmates that are all on the same rules. They're much stricter than regular prison. And you essentially have to hold each other accountable. People call it a snitch program because you're essentially telling on each other, which causes a lot of drama. But that program changed me so much. And I never would have thought that I would say this, but going to prison was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because it taught me to slow down, stay in the moment, appreciate things for what they are. There's no cell phones in prison. Well, there are, if you know who to talk to, but there's no social media. You just have fellowship that you get with the guys that are around you, and you learn to develop real relationships. So I knew that when I got home, my life was going to be a lot different. I wasn't sure what my company was going to be like when I got back. I was gone for 2 years. Turns out when I got out, the company was nowhere near where it was when I left. I'm confident once I'm allowed to get back to it, I'll turn it around again. But I'm a lot different, so I'm probably going to run it a lot different. I'm a lot patient, and I'm filled with so much gratitude. Every day I wake up so happy just to be back by Marissa's side. And I also want to add that through all this, if you're curious, we're getting married on September 20th, so she never left me. And when I say that God played a big role in my life, I felt that it was wrong to ask for things. I felt that because I was lazy with God for all those years, that I couldn't say, hey, do this for me, you know. But I asked him every night when I would pray, I would say, please take care of Marissa. And then I would thank him for bringing her to me. And getting out and being back with her after all that was the greatest feeling in the world. I don't advise it, but getting out of prison is an amazing, amazing feeling. And I haven't lost that high yet. So if I could give advice to anybody that's here, to anybody that's listening, stay in the moment. Enjoy it for what it is, because I look back and at the house and the cars and all these things that I went through and lost, I didn't even really appreciate any of it. There were just things that I wanted. Now, the small amount of things that I still have means so much to me. The few friends that stuck around, like Guy, and you find out who your friends are when you go to prison, because most of them disappear. Guy stayed true to me. My buddy Nick Trigilli put money on my books while I was gone, stayed true to me. Kristen and Chris Graham wrote me the whole time. My assistant Teresa wrote me. But I could list it all right now in a matter of 10, 20 seconds, and I had 100,000 followers, millions of contacts of people that I talked to. They all disappeared. But that's okay, because it just makes it easier for me to know what truly matters. I don't want to come up here and tell a depressing story, because so many people told powerful, exciting, enthusiastic stories today. But if you could learn from me, appreciate what you got when you have it, because it'll be gone real fast, but learn what really matters. Learn what really matters, and for me, nothing matters more than true love, and I have that, and I'll be back. So thank you guys very much for letting me do this today. It was really nice.